Hey everyone, welcome. We are now sitting down with Cathy Pearl. Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. So, we will be talking about conversational interfaces. So this is, you're heading the design and outreach, is that right?
Head of Conversation Design Outreach, right, at Google.
At Google, okay. And then I want to talk to you about so many things. There's like the technical side of things, but then there's like the evolution of how it's evolved. Maybe we dabble into the evolution first. So let's do evolution and technical at the same time. So maybe it's like, how did this even start? These conversational interfaces, and then also like as we've started it, we figured out how it works, and we've been tweaking it over time to make it better.
Sure. Well, I mean, back in the 1950s, when artificial intelligence was kind of first emerging as a thing, it was interesting because a lot of the researchers thought, oh, language, that won't be too hard. I mean, toddlers can speak. We're going to go after the really hard stuff like chess. That's going to be tough. When in fact they discovered very quickly that it's kind of been the reverse. Things like chess that are very rule-based, computers could do pretty well at, but language has been a real challenge for the computer science community. So it wasn't until sort of the 1990s that voice even became a thing that anyone sort of in general out there in the world even knew about, which you would encounter when you called your bank or your airline and you would get a computer talking to you. So that's kind of where I started in the late 90s, was working on those IVRs, those phone systems. But it's really evolved since then. The technology has improved greatly and it's become more mainstream. Instead of a barrier where you call a service and you are forced to speak to a computer, now a lot of us choose to speak to a computer because it can be a helpful thing.
Okay, so we went from it being more forced, as in we would call in for help.
Right.
And then we would get a kind of like a numerical, press this button for this.
That was the sort of precursor, and then it emerged to, you know, sort of menu items, like you can do this, or this.
Tell us
which
what
would
you're
you
calling
like?
about.
Exactly. And so that was kind of the evolution within the IVR space.
And IVR means?
Sorry, IVR means interactive voice response.
Interactive voice response.
Right.
Okay.
And cool. IVRs have a reputation of everyone sort of really not liking them, but there have been and still continue to be a lot of successful ones. One of the ones I'm most proud of I worked on called 511, where prior to smartphones, if you were out in your car, you had no way of getting like traffic information or transit information. But I designed a system where you could call in and get the latest traffic and things like that. And it's still in the Bay Area, still gets millions of calls. So there were systems that people did like to call and they did want to talk to. But there were a lot of bad ones out there too, so it was kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, like the comparison between just looking at Google Maps for traffic versus calling in a 511
Right.
and maybe talking to somebody.
Right.
Okay. And this would be the interface that we engage with when we do this is almost always non-human?
If you're calling one of these systems,
Yeah.
Right, you would be speaking to, in the case of IVRs, it's almost always pre-recorded human speech. So a voice actor goes into a recording booth and records hundreds or thousands of prompts, we call them.
Wow. Holy cow. Okay, so that's how it happens. Voice actor goes in, female or male, different languages, and then they record hundreds of thousands of prompts.
That's how it used to be, because what we call computer speech, text-to-speech or TTS, wasn't good enough back then to do. Nowadays, with things like Google Home, you use text-to-speech, computer-generated voices, because they sound good enough that we can accomplish things with them.
They sound good enough,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's when we do something like Okay, Google, how old is Melinda Gates?
53 years old.
There she is, 53 years old. So that's it coming back and using text-to-speech.
Right.
So I mean, and this is maybe where we can get a little bit technical about it, but it's listening to what I'm saying and putting that into text and then running that text search. And then the text search brings back a result of 53 years. And then that 53 years is voiced back as voice.
That's right.
Yeah. And so then how is this this is technically very similar to the process of voice chat as well when I'm doing conversational interface with a program.
Right, so essentially as you described it, first thing you have to do is capture the sounds that are coming out of the person's mouth. What words are those? But at that point you don't really have meaning. You just know they said, the cat in the hat, but you have no idea what that means. It's as if I was transcribing a foreign speaker that I don't speak their language. I could probably write down some sounds that were what they said, but I have no idea what they mean. So part 2 is you take those words that have been, as you said, transcribed, and then you have to extract meaning or intent. What does the user want here? Do they want to ask a question like, how old is Melinda Gates? Do they want to set a timer? Do they want to have an actual back and forth conversation? So they have different needs and different intents depending on what they say.
Mm-hmm. The intent, because question versus an action.
Right, could be an action, could be I just want to chat.
I just want to chat.
Yeah, so it could be different things.
So then could I say something like, okay, Google, how are you feeling?
I'm doing great, thanks for asking. What can I help you with?
I'm feeling sad.
Oh no. It may not be much, but let me know if there is anything I can do for you.
Cheer me up. Okay, Google. Cheer me up.
I love to entertain. We can write a Mad Lib story. I can find you a fun fact, or you can spin the wheel. What do you want to try?
Okay, so we're kind of there a little bit. I mean, it's pretty good for a bunch of one of the most well-established and expensive companies in the world. Yeah,
It's a start.
yeah. Now the conversational interfaces that are being built at Google. This is Google Assistant, what we just used.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that part of the focus of the work?
Part of what I'm doing currently at Google.
Yes, and the outreach, like to when you get other people excited about getting involved. What are the conversational interfaces that are being talked about?
The outreach, it's about sort of helping people understand what conversation design is. So when people often get these fun ideas to create, for example, actions on Google, which is third parties can create their own interactions with the Google Assistant. But a lot of times they just dive into the technical problem or the cool thing they're doing, but they don't really think about design so much. And what that ends up sometimes happening then is you have a poor experience with your user, and your user is frustrated, doesn't want to use your action that you created. So part of my mission is to educate people and help them learn about this thing called conversation design, which is basically like, think about the old days of web design where you saw a lot of bad websites with like flashing lights and they were hard to navigate. And we've kind of realized that to make a really good website, you need someone who knows about website design. Similarly, if you want to have a great conversation with whatever you're building, you need to apply design principles to be really successful.
So when you're teaching conversation design to new people, what are some of those principles?
So some of the basic ones include, it's really important at the stage we're at to let the user know when is it their turn to talk and what can they say or not say. With a human, we can talk about anything we want. We can probably get back on track. If I say something you don't understand, you can always follow up, etc. With these voice assistants, we're more in the infancy, and so if you say like, how can I help you? But in fact, all you can do is book movie tickets. Well, that's a very off-putting experience for the user because they're going to think, oh, I can ask anything, when really all you can do is buy movie tickets. You have to be very straightforward about letting your user know, this is what I can do, here's what, let's talk about those things. The other part is something we call error handling, which means when things go off track, because they often will go off track, you have to be able to get the user back on track. And so we emphasize, don't just think about what we call the happy path, where everything's going great. Think about the times when maybe it didn't understand the user or it made a mistake. How do we get the user to get back to what they want to do? So you have to spend time on that.
The context makes a lot of sense, setting the context. This is what I can do. This is what I can help you with.
Right. Set the expectations very clearly, because we sometimes overset them and people get frustrated because they think, well, why can't you do that?
Yeah, that seems to be huge. And then that's huge in human communication as
yes,
well. Yeah,
for sure.
yes. And then The second one, remind me again.
With error handling.
With error handling. Okay, error handling. So this is when the conversation goes off track a little, how do you bring it back on track?
Right, so if you are doing your movie ticket thing and you say, how can I help you? And the user says, well, what's a good pizza place? Now, you don't know anything about pizza places. So rather than just say, I don't understand, how can I help you? Which would be pretty useless because the user is still stuck.
Let me connect you to the chat bot.
It'll say,
for pizza.
or say, sorry, I don't do restaurant recommendations. Would you like, I can help you book movie tickets. Is there a movie you're interested in?
Yeah,
Get back to the point of things.
Yeah. Error handle as in you read out that it's a restaurant inquiry and then you say can't do that.
If you can. You don't always know if they say, zebra, 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 you don't have any idea what they said. So
I don't like pinstriped animals.
You might not be able to go that far, but you might say, sorry, I didn't quite get that, but I can help you book a movie. Is there a movie you'd like me to look at? Something like that. Okay,
so what are some of the futures that we're experiencing? I mean, we already have Google Assistants right here. It's also Google Home. It's also Amazon Alexa. There's so many of these. So where are we going to a place where we are conversing with this kind of like the movie Her?
I get asked that a lot, and we are light years away from that. Maybe that is the future. But
and by light years, you mean like 15 years?
No, I don't. Well, this is my own personal opinion, is that we're not going to be there in 15 years. And a lot of that is because you think about one thing computers really struggle with is common sense. So something, if I had a real assistant, they would know what I meant if I said something that was out of the topic we were discussing. And right now, computers just are really not great at building sort of a model of what the real world is like. And so as soon as you go off track a little bit from the topic, they can struggle. So I do think we will be speaking and typing to more and more of our devices and getting more things done that way and having an assistant do things on our behalf. But we're a long way from getting to the kind where you can just chat about anything at all and they can handle that.
The bandwidth is so limited with fingers. It feels like the bandwidth is much better with text. Or with talking, and then even further with video.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, to me, that's one of the things I love most about voice is that you don't have to think about how am I going to, you just speak naturally. And if we do a good job building our product, then we can understand your intent. Because people ask for the same thing in many different ways, even something simple like I want to set an alarm for 8 a.m. There's 50 different ways. I might say set an alarm for 8. I want an alarm in the morning. Can you set it for 8 a.m.? I want a timer for 8 a.m. It's not even a timer, it's an alarm, and yet that's what I meant. So you have to, that's the thing that's tricky about voice is people say things, the same thing, in a huge variety of ways. And we need to understand all those different things.
Because you parse the word timer out of that, and you're like, oh, they want a timer, but then it says 4:08 a.m.
Yeah, it's like, well, that doesn't
like,
make, if you were a bad system, you'd say, does not compute, makes no sense. If you're a good system, you're like, well, they really mean an alarm. I'll just, go ahead. That's what a human would do. A human would say, I know what you're talking about.
Exactly, yeah. So how do we get conversational interfaces to the point where it's more like humans knowing what each other are talking about, even when the nuance and what's being communicated is a little bit kind of like the efficiency is not so direct. The efficiency is a little bit, like you said, timer for 8 a.m. It's like, they mean an alarm. Okay, how about a question about what are kind of the other extent? I mean, you were talking about conversational interfaces will be more so around us. So we're talking like the smart home things, smart fridge, smart lights, smart oven, smart TV, blah blah. So set my mood for happy, set my mood for dinner, etc. Where else do you see kind of us entering right now with conversational interfaces? Like where else are they going to be? In the car while we're driving?
Sure, that would be a great place because right now, if I want to be able to switch songs or switch podcasts or make a phone call, whatever, and I want to be able to do it with my voice so I can be completely hands-free. Yeah. So the car is a great place for voice.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, in the future, it could be anywhere. You could just be outside on a hike and take a picture of a tree and say, what kind of tree is that? and just use your voice to start that task.
And then image search, then drop.
And then it would take care of, right?
Yeah, take care of it. Cool. So then it becomes a intertwining of the different tech stacks that we've built out, because then we're intertwining the voice to text with the image search.
Right. It's just the way in to,
the way in
right.
to all the other feed. But then those tech stacks have to be connected as well.
Right. So
and that's a lot of
yeah, exactly.
build out,
so
yeah.
I think sometimes people may not realize that the difficulty is not always just in extracting the meaning from the words that we recognize. The difficulty is then in, you have all these different APIs, all these different layers where you've got all these different systems that have to be able to talk to each other in order to carry out whatever your task is, whether that's making, looking up a recipe and sending the ingredients to your shopping assistant or whatever. There's like so many different aspects to it. And so it's a lot of that underlying stuff that has to get to work together.
Yeah, we pride ourselves a lot on being very polymathic, like multidisciplinary. And so when you were mentioning that, I was totally thinking about all the ways that we got to make the connections across the different stacks in order for them to be able to communicate together.
Right, to be useful.
To be really useful, yeah. Where does, what are some of the insights from natural language processing? Because you were talking about the alarm versus timer. What are some other insights that you could share with us?
Well, one thing is that people, it's not just say phrases or words. Like I might say pancakes, you might say flapjacks. Okay, that's a pretty straightforward example of one word meaning the same thing. But people,
tomato.
Yeah, but people just have different narratives. Even if I'm just ordering pizza, it's my pizza. I'm telling you my story, and I might not do it the same way as you. So one person might say, I want 3 large pepperonis to go. And one other person might say, I want to order some pizza. So your conversational system can't just be like, oh, I'm expecting them to say the size of the pizza at this stage. Well, they might not. They're going to talk about pizza, but how they do it, in what order, and the way they talk about it can be different. So even something that seems super simple, like ordering a pizza, ends up being a lot more complex, just because people are going to do it the way people are going to do it.
Okay, so let's see if we can break this down. So it would be like, let's just say that that we knew that pizza was now going to be ordered. Okay, so we are, because we've seen the word pizza, order, I want pizza, order pizza, give me some pizza. That's like kind of the first step. Now you know pizza.
Right.
Okay, great. Now, if they add 3 large pepperonis, if they said that in the first one, then you could drop basically down a couple layers.
Exactly.
And then you would already know what they want.
Right.
So then you don't need to ask, what do you want?
Right, because imagine a human, if I say I want a pizza and I want 3 large pepperonis, and you're like, what size would you like? And you're like, what? I just said.
told you,
so we don't.
yeah.
Our computers have to be able to do that too.
So then you're dropping down those levels, so you can the efficiency in human input, when human goes in and speaks what they want, the more characteristics of the item that they desire that they describe off the top. Like if you say, I want to order from this location, 3 large pepperoni pizzas delivered at 6 p.m. tomorrow, use my business card.
Right.
Then it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Then you went 12 layers and the transaction is
Right.
done, basically.
And people they correct themselves. I say, I want to order 3 pizzas. Oh, you're not coming? Oh, I want to order 2 pizzas. I just had a conversation with somebody else. Does the computer know that? That's what I was talking about with common sense. Computers right now don't always realize I'm actually talking to somebody else there. They're still listening to me. And so they get confused. So you have to be able to anticipate all these varieties in the way we talk.
Whoa. Yeah. Oh, I love how complex and interesting this is. Yeah, because it's such a massive we evolved with language. It's one of the most important aspects. It helps us relate to each other, relate to things, and so that's just a major part of human evolution. So now to be able to put programming and algorithms and facilitating life processes with conversational interfaces is so cool. So cool. I'm really happy that we unpacked those layers. Actually, Google Assistant had at the demo was booking haircuts, right? It was booking haircuts. So it was like, book me a haircut between 12 and 2 p.m. on the 15th. And then that would be the whole task. It would be done. It would be given, and either it would have a registry of where you had went in the past, or you could recommend the exact salon, or maybe it would ask you which salon of these three do you want to go to. But just like that, then this is maybe we ask you quick about this. So now the Google Assistant is making the phone call to the salon. Now, was that 100,000 hours or 100,000 phrases that were made by voice actors, or is that then being able to string the different pieces of information together that's just in this now massive database of words, that like the dictionary of words that you can just string together and it sounds like a cohesive sentence?
For Google Duplex stuff, I can refer you to the blog post that Google put out that talks a little bit more about how it works. Yeah.
So Google Duplex.
That's what
it's called.
Yeah.
But that is what part of the conversational interface, right? That's part of the, yeah. Now, in terms of outreach, maybe let's definitely touch on this. So we're at Women in Tech International. We're here at the summit, and it's really important to get to see people like you in these roles, because then we can inspire other women and other young women to get more involved as they see it, they can be it. So what are you currently up to with outreach, and tell us about that.
Yeah, as I said before, my main mission is to go out there and talk to people about what is conversation design, why is it important, when you should think about it in your projects, what does it even mean, what are the principles, and really get people excited about the design portion, and not just the cool tech, because the tech is very cool, but also to think about the best way to go about it so that you'll have the best possible experience for people, and they'll want to use it.
And so besides maybe the corporate clients and the colleges and other startups and projects like that, for when they would want to use it, what about kind of like STEAM education in general? Is there like a tie to young women in high school? And
so Google definitely does sponsor some different organizations, and I myself in the past, before I joined Google, was a volunteer for Girls Who Code, which is a high school and junior high initiative where we go in and help girls learn to code, but also just get excited about coding and feel comfortable with that. One of the things I always like to tell the girls in those classes is, maybe this will inspire you to become a programmer, maybe it won't, it doesn't have to, but knowing how to program can be a great asset no matter what role you take, even if you do something that's totally different. Understanding the underpinnings really helps you talk to when you have to be talking to the engineers about developing your ideas. If you have a basic understanding of what that means, it's really, really helpful. Get you further in the game. But also, sometimes you can write your own code to get stuff that you might want. Like, let's say you're running a project. Let's say you're doing a biology. You're at a biotech company, and you're running experiments, and you want to get access to the data for the experiment. If you have to go through an engineer, they might not have time. That might not be part of what they're supposed to be doing. If you know enough coding to go grab some data, run some SQL queries, get the things you want, you can just go get your own stuff and start, making your own conclusions and things like that. So it's just super powerful. Even if you're not going to become, a full-time coder, having a bit of background can just really help.
Yeah, I have a very, I know like 0.001% about all of this, but what I can tell you is I can at least have a kind of 10,000 foot view of it, and that helps me kind of break down like that, that pizza example, and so even that bare minimum view of how it works can kind of get you by. And then there's that, and then there's also the, like you said, just be able to know the pieces, like if you apply the Pareto principle to code. Maybe you learn the 20% of coding skills that give you access to 80% of knowing how to code certain things that you need to do. Okay, so you authored a book as well?
Yes, came out in
it.
2016. It's called Designing Voice User Interfaces from O'Reilly. And it's a really great introduction to anyone, whether you're a designer, developer, project manager, product manager. If you want to understand more about this space, what does it even mean to build one of these things? What are the challenges? Including the question, should I build a voice user interface for what I'm doing? Because voice is not always, I love voice, but it's not always the right technical solution for the problem you're trying to solve. So the book will help you make that decision and then give you guidelines about how to actually go about doing it.
And we'll have the link in the bio for you guys to check out. Let's a couple quick rapid fire questions. What do you think is the most beautiful thing in the world?
Oh my gosh, there's too many things to answer to that. I guess I would put two things in that. One is just nature, the universe, going outside and looking at beautiful things out there. And the other one I think is just stories from other people. You know, you can not know somebody, they can live thousands of miles away, and you can see a really well done video about them, and it can immediately move you and touch you, and I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah, those are great. Do you think we're alone in the cosmos?
Oh boy. It seems hard to believe we would be, but then you also think, well, why wouldn't we know by now? But then again, the universe is huge, so maybe it just hasn't happened yet. So I'd like to think we're not alone.
Yeah, there's some fellow civilizations out there.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're friendly.
Yeah. And then, do you think we're in a simulation?
I don't. I think when I was in high school, I contemplated that, and no, I don't. I just think the odds against that are just, I think nature and evolution is a bit too random and explains everything that's going on right now, and we don't need to come up with the simulation theory to kind of explain things of who we are.
That's exactly what the simulator would want you to think.
That's true. In which case, kudos to them. They're doing a great job.
Cathy, we only started unpacking, but I really appreciate your time, and this has been super fun to sit down together and get into conversational interfaces. I think we learned a lot, even just from the short amount of time together.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on to the show. And everyone, if you guys had a good time, make sure to give us a subscribe, make sure to comment below your thoughts, share the content with other people, get in a conversation with other people, go and create with this. So go and maybe get the book, go and start something yourself. Maybe it's right for you to make one of these. Also write about it, make videos about it, go and create with the content. If you guys want us to continue coming to cool places like the Women in Technology Summit, join us on Patreon so we can continue coming around and doing these interviews with brilliant people around the world, especially women, especially young women. So let's make it happen. Join us. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.